As an English major, I have encountered many different genres of literature. Within those genres, I have discovered many different writers. Recently, I have spent time studying poetry and find it to not only be enjoyable, but inspirational. One of the most prolific and famous poets I have come across is Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson is a poet who is often considered one of the most important American poets today. She's almost always taught in every American literature and poetry class, from middle school to college. Emily Dickinson was born December 10, 1830, to her parents Edward and Emily Norcross Dickinson. She had two siblings, older brother Austin and younger sister Lavinia. In her younger years, Dickinson lived in her family home on North Pleasant Street in Elmhurst, Massachusetts, and spent her time baking and gardening. She began school and attended Amherst Academy for 7 years. After that, she attended Mount Holyoke Female Seminary, now called Mount Holyoke College, for a year in 1847. Dickinson began writing in her teen years, but it wasn't until she moved into the homestead on the Dickinson estate in Amherst, Massachusetts, that she began writing extensively. By the time she turned 35, she had written over 1,100 poems, often written in the bedroom she became increasingly self-confined to. During this time, she also wrote letters to her friends and loved ones. In 1864 and 1865, Dickinson underwent treatments for iritis, a painful eye condition, and rarely left the homestead after treatment for the problem. She spent the last years of her life writing poems, but became ill and died at the age of 55 on May 15, 1886. Dickinson did not become famous until after her death and was published extensively, posthumously. Her family discovered volumes of her work and eventually published her poetry. The poems were successful, but it wasn't until 1955 when literary scholar Thomas H. Johnson published The Poems of Emily Dickinson that a single edition contained every poem she had ever written. Dickinson's work has stood the test of time because her themes are universal. She often wrote of nature, love, the idea of death and mortality, as well as suffering and growth. Readers will find that Dickinson frequently sticks to an 8-6-8-6 syllable rhyme pattern that employs slant rhyme. This closely matches the tune of the opening bars of The Yellow Rose of Texas. One of my favorite poems by Dickinson is the often quoted and inspirational "Hope is the thing with feathers."
The thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea. Yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.
Though Emily Dickinson lived over 100 years ago, we still find her poetry beautiful and relevant. It's impossible to not be impressed by her style and relatability, proving that regardless of the time that we are here on this planet, we all experience the same hopes, fears, desires, and emotions.